Welcome to the All-Star Planning Podcast. My name is Kelsey, and this is the place where I talk all things teacher lesson plans. Today, we are talking about do-nows. I hate do-nows. Anybody else hate do-nows? Reach out to me, please. Tell me if you hate do-nows, because I cannot be the only one, right? I've always hated do-nows. I hated them as a kid. I hate them as an adult. I hate them as a teacher. I just all around hate them. I know why they're important. Some people call them bell ringers. It's just kind of like the work that your kids do as you're getting settled, as you are taking attendance, they're getting ready, they're getting prepared, they're getting in the mindset for learning. I hate them. I hated them as a kid, and I really think the reason I hated them when I was in school is because they were never graded. They were never graded. For me, a kid who is working hard to get an A, I was a smart kid, but there were definitely a lot of kids that were smarter than me in school. I felt like if it wasn't graded, I wasn't going to spend my time doing it. Anytime a teacher would walk around the room to see who was doing the do now, I would just pretend to write stuff. I would never actually do it. And it was because it wasn't graded. What's the point of doing schoolwork that's not graded, right? Especially in my English class, because my English classes, to me, just seemed like a bunch of baloney. So, hence the reason I'm a science teacher, right? No shade to the English teachers. I know now, as an adult, that it is a very important skill to know, but at the time, I wasn't rocking with it. So, your do now is going to be your introduction to your lesson in some way, shape, or form. For me, it was just another thing to plan, and I hated it. It was like, what's a question that's going to get them warmed up that maybe they can't answer yet, but they'll be able to answer by the end of the lesson? And it just became like, it was just too much. It was too much, and I couldn't handle it. So, what I decided to do this year, I think was life-changing, and now I'm a big fan of the do now. Is this crazy? For years, I hated them. Years and years and years and years and years. Even at the beginning of this school year, I hated them. My principal gave me an observation, and I was talking about how much I hated do-nows, and he was like, well, they're really important. And I was like, yeah, but I hate them. And he was like, they're really important. I did do-nows. I've always done do-nows, but I hate them. I felt like they took just as much time to plan as like my full activity and my lesson, which is not supposed to happen. So what I decided to do this year was actually just to create a giant bank of questions that were review questions that my kids would be able to do at virtually any time of the school year. So I have like a September bank, which is general science questions, scientific method questions, measurement questions, and the stuff that we learn in September. And then when we get to October, my October question bank includes September concepts plus new things they're learning in October. By the time I got to February, the kids were doing so much review work in our first 5 minutes of class. And I would try to pick questions that kind of paired with the concepts that we were learning that day, but I wasn't too crazy about it because my kids are preparing for a final exam, and for me, that's a state final exam. And exposing them to the types of questions that they were going to see, the wording of questions, and then just concepts that come up quite a bit, or things they may have forgotten about, to me became genius. Next year, I will be continuing my question bank do-nows simply because they were super easy. They didn't require a lot of thought. My brain was able to not think about the do-nows and instead plan stuff that I thought was better, more interactive, more interesting for my kids. And here's the best part. I actually had the kids self-assess them. An upcoming podcast episode is going to be all about creating a culture in your classroom where students are comfortable with self-assessment, because I think that I'm actually really good at doing that. Basically, you just tell the kids you love them every day. I found this acrylic organizer on Amazon, and it has 3 compartments in it. So I have the kids, we keep our self-assessment very simple. We do a 3-2-1 scale. 3 is an expert, 2 you're feeling okay, and 1 I call them lost puppies because they're a little lost. they're sad, they need some help, but they're cute, adorable puppies. And the little cards that I put in the organizer are 3 pictures of puppies that I found. So the kids will take their do nows, and I run through it and I give them the answers, and we talk about the answers, and then they self-assess. And for a while, I was doing it based on how they felt. So maybe they got all 5 questions right, but they felt really confused about it. So they would put themselves in the 1 or the 2 box. And then at some point, I would change it based on their score. So I would say, okay, if you got 5 out of 5, then you are a level 3. You're an expert. If you got 3 or 4 questions right, then you are a level 2. You feel okay. And if you got 0, 1, or 2 questions, then you are a lost puppy. So I would change it from time to time because sometimes kids get the right answer, but they're not sure why. And sometimes I'm more interested in the score. Sometimes I'm more interested in how they feel, and we would just change it from time to time. But really what happens is I would just give the kids 5 review questions, all multiple choice. We'd breeze through them, check things out. I know that there's always going to be some kids that aren't putting in their best effort for one reason or another. Maybe it's too early, maybe they were late to class, maybe they're not feeling well, maybe they just don't know the answers, so they're afraid to answer the questions. And that's part of the reason why I would change back and forth between how you felt and what you actually scored. So that's something to consider as well. If you can't get a 1 basket organizer, I would consider putting self-assessment type things into baskets or folders or different turn-in bins or whatever it may be, like those turn-in trays, like an office desk tray where you can fit papers. I use Sterilite drawers. I like the Sterilite drawers, and you can like pull them out and treat them as baskets and then shove them back in the drawer system, and then it's all organized and put away and not papers thrown all over the place. So there's lots of different options for having your kids self-assess, and I think that's one of the best ways to do it, is just like physically put it in a spot as opposed to having a kid grade it themselves. I think it's a lot more pressure for the kids to grade it themselves than it is to just drop it in a box. So that's my 2 cents on it. If you haven't already, sign up for the masterclass. It is how I take the 5 pieces of the All-Star Planning Method, put them together, and kind of show you how it's done. You can find that at plan.kelseyrevy.com. Did I mention it's a free masterclass? It's a free masterclass. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast because you don't want to miss anything. I talk cool stuff here. Next week I'm talking exit tickets. I hate that term, exit tickets. We'll talk next week, okay? I can't let this go on too long. But subscribe to the podcast. New episodes come out every Tuesday. And that is all. That's all I have for you. Don't be a do now hater. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time. Happy planning.